Return from the Abyss, Book 1.
Chapter 12. Blood Contract and the Cult's Trail. The contract board had been picked clean by the time Caden arrived at the Fulcrum Guild that morning. 2 escort missions remained, both Class E, barely worth the effort. He was turning away when Myra's voice cut through the hall's ambient noise. "Caden, over here!" She stood near Thorne's office, a rolled parchment in her hand, her expression serious. Fen hovered beside her, adjusting his perpetually smudged glasses with nervous energy. "We've got something," Myra said as Caden approached. "Class C escort contract. Merchant caravan heading from the eastern villages to Greyhaven. 3 wagons, valuable cargo, magical components, rare herbs, some enchanted items. The merchants are willing to pay well because the road's been dangerous lately." "How much?" Caden asked. 60 gold pieces. Myra's green eyes studied his reaction. "Split 3 ways, that's 20 each. The catch is it's a 3-day journey. We leave today." Fen shifted his staff, the oak one Bargar had made for him, from one hand to the other. "The route passes through the Thornwood Hills. Bandits have been active there for the last month. Nothing too dangerous, mostly deserters and desperate men, but enough to make merchants nervous." "Sounds simple," Caden said, which meant it probably wouldn't be. In his experience, contracts that seemed straightforward had a way of becoming complicated. "Should be," Myra agreed, though something in her tone suggested she shared his skepticism. "Thorne approved it this morning. We meet the caravan at the Eastern Way Station in 2 hours, bring supplies for 3 days. 2 hours later, they stood at the weathered stone way station where the Eastern Road met Greyhaven's outer perimeter. The merchant caravan was already waiting. 3 large wagons pulled by sturdy draft horses, each wagon covered with canvas and reinforced with iron bands. The merchants themselves were a nervous lot. An older man who introduced himself as Henrik, his 2 sons, and a younger merchant named Karis who couldn't seem to stop fidgeting. "Thank the gods you're here," Henrik said, his weathered face creasing with relief. "We've been hearing stories from other caravans. The roads aren't safe anymore. Bandits are getting bolder, more organized. Last week, a caravan like ours was hit. They killed everyone, took everything." "We'll keep you safe," Myra assured him, her voice carrying calm authority. "But we need you to follow our instructions exactly. If we say stop, you stop. If we say hide, you hide. Understood?" All 4 merchants nodded rapidly. The first day passed without incident. They made good time along the well-maintained road, stopping only twice for brief rests. The Thornwood Hills rose gradually to the north, rolling terrain covered in dense forest that provided excellent cover for ambushes. Caden's enhanced senses stayed extended, searching for threats in every shadow, but he detected nothing beyond normal wildlife. They camped that night in a cleared area beside the road, taking turns on watch. Caden's shift was midnight to dawn, and he spent it sitting with his back against a wagon wheel, Bonefang across his lap, listening to the forest sounds and the merchants snoring. Nothing attacked. Nothing even approached. Too quiet, he thought. In the abyss, prolonged silence meant either no predators or a very smart one waiting for the perfect moment. The second day brought clouds and a chill wind that made the merchants pull their cloaks tighter. By midday, they'd entered the heart of the Thornwood Hills, the road narrowing, the forest pressing close on both sides. Visibility reduced to maybe 30 meters in any direction. Perfect ambush terrain. Caden felt the wrongness before he saw it. A subtle shift in the forest's ambient noise. Birds that had been singing suddenly going silent. The rustle of wind through leaves stopping, as if the world itself was holding its breath. "Contact," he said quietly, his hand already on Bonefang's hilt. Ahead and both flanks, multiple hostiles. Myra's head snapped toward him, then she scanned the tree line with professional focus. Fen gripped his staff tighter, green viral energy already beginning to gather around his hands. "How many?" Myra asked. 20, maybe more. There, the attack came from everywhere at once. Men burst from the forest on both sides of the road, Not the ragged deserters and desperate bandits Caden had expected, but organized fighters moving in coordinated squads. They wore mismatched armor, but their weapons were good quality, their formation disciplined. These weren't amateurs. "Defend the wagons!" Myra roared, her body already beginning to glow with the brown-gray light of Terral energy. Her skin took on a stony texture as the earth energy reinforced her flesh. The caravan guards, 6 men hired by the merchants, drew weapons and formed a defensive circle around the wagons. But Caden could see in their wide eyes and trembling hands that they were outmatched. These were common soldiers, not experienced fighters. The first wave hit like a hammer. 3 attackers rushed Caden, moving with the fluid coordination of trained warriors. The lead man swung a sword in a textbook overhead strike. Caden sidestepped, his blade deflecting the attack and opening the man's guard. A quick thrust to the throat, and the first attacker fell. The second and third attacked simultaneously from different angles, a classic pincer. Caden dropped low, letting their strikes pass overhead, then swept his leg out in a spinning kick that took one attacker's feet out from under him. As the man fell, Bonefang found his heart. The third attacker hesitated, a fatal mistake. Caden's sword took him in the side, punching through leather armor and into the lung. The man gasped, blood bubbling from his mouth, and collapsed. 3 down in 5 seconds, but there were 17 more. Caden felt it then, a familiar pulse of energy, similar to his own crimson, but wrong somehow. Tainted, weaker. 10 meters away, one of the attackers was glowing with a dim reddish light. The energy wrapped around his body in uneven patterns, not the clean network of veins that manifest when Caden used crimson, but splotchy and irregular, like a disease. The enhanced attacker moved, fast, faster than any normal human should. He covered the distance to one of the caravan guards in a heartbeat, his sword moving in a blur. The guard tried to block, but the enhanced speed was too much. The attacker's blade found the gap in the guard's armor, and the man fell screaming. "They're using power!" Ben shouted, his voice cracking with fear. "How are they? That's not possible! You need years of training to—" "Later," Myron interrupted. She was engaged with 3 attackers of her own, her stone-enhanced fists breaking bones with every strike. But even she was struggling. 2 more of the attackers were glowing with that sick reddish light, their enhanced strength and speed making them far more dangerous than normal bandits. Caden moved toward the nearest enhanced attacker, activating his own crimson. The scarlet light erupted from his palm, racing up his arm in those familiar vein patterns. Power flooded his muscles, real power, clean and hot and intoxicating. His speed doubled, his strength multiplied. The world seemed to slow around him as his perception sharpened to supernatural levels. The enhanced attacker noticed him coming, turned to engage. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Caden saw something in the man's gaze. Pain, confusion, a terrible desperation. This wasn't someone who trained for years to master crimson. This was someone who'd had power forced into them. They clashed. The attacker was strong, stronger than a normal human had any right to be. His sword came around in strikes that would have shattered bones, that carried enough force to dent steel. But his technique was crude, his movements predictable. He relied entirely on the enhanced physical capabilities, with no real skill backing them up. Caden had spent 10 years in the abyss, fighting things that were faster, stronger, and more vicious than anything in this world. This cultist, because that's what he had to be, someone who'd used forbidden methods to gain power, was dangerous to normal fighters. To Caden, he was an amateur with a power-up. 5 strikes, that's all it took. Caden's blade found the gaps in the man's defense with surgical precision, tendon behind the knee, wrist to disarm, throat to finish. The cultist fell, his reddish glow fading as life left his body. "On your left!" Myra's warning came a split second before another enhanced attacker lunged at Caden from the side. This one was stronger, the reddish glow brighter, more stable. Clearly he'd had the power longer, his body more adapted to it. Their swords met with a clang that sent sparks flying. The force of impact drove Caden back 2 steps. Strong, very strong. They traded strikes at superhuman speed, their blades moving in blurs that would have been invisible to normal eyes. The cultist was better than the first one. He had actual combat training, knew how to use his enhanced strength efficiently. But 10 years versus a few months of training showed in every exchange. Caden's blade found openings the cultist didn't know existed. Cut to the thigh, slash across the shoulder, stab to the side that slipped between ribs. The cultist stumbled, his reddish glow flickering. Caden's final strike took his head. Around them the battle was turning. Myra had broken the spine of one enhanced attacker and was grappling with another. 3 caravan guards lay dead or dying. Fen was frantically channeling viral into a wounded guard, his weak healing barely keeping the man alive. But half the attackers were dead, and the rest were beginning to falter. They'd expected an easy target, soft merchants and a few hired guards. Instead, they'd run into an A-rank hunter with Terrell and whatever the hell Caden was. "Retreat!" One of the cultists, a man with a scar across his face, shouted the order. "Fall back! Fall!" Myra's stone-enhanced fist caved in the side of his skull mid-sentence. The remaining attackers broke and ran, disappearing into the forest. Caden's instinct was to pursue, to hunt them down and eliminate the threat completely. But Myra's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Let them go," she said, breathing hard, her stone skin fading back to normal flesh. "We need to secure the caravan. Check for wounded." The aftermath was grim. 3 of the 6 caravan guards were dead. 2 more were badly wounded. Fen was working on them, his face pale with the effort of channeling viral beyond his normal capacity. One of the merchants, Henrik's younger son, had taken an arrow to the shoulder and sat against a wagon wheel, gritting his teeth against the pain. 12 attackers lay dead around the wagons. Caden moved among them, checking bodies, searching for anything that might explain who they were and why they'd attacked. On the 3rd body, one of the enhanced ones, he found it. A small notebook, leather-bound, tucked into an inner pocket. The cover was marked with a symbol that Myra's breath caught when she saw it. A crimson star with 8 points, drawn in what looked like dried blood. "The Order of the Crimson Star," she said quietly, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "These aren't bandits, they're cultists." Caden flipped through the notebook. The handwriting was cramped and difficult to read, but certain words jumped out. Shards, sacrifice, portal, festival, and addresses, specific locations in Greyhaven, marked with dates and times. "Let me see that," Myra said, taking the notebook carefully. Her eyes scanned the pages, and with each one her expression grew darker. Gods, they're planning something big. The Harvest Festival. 3 days from now, the whole city will be gathered in the central square. She looked up at Caden, and he saw genuine fear in her eyes. They're going to attack during the festival. Thousands of civilians will be there. "How many cultists?" Caden asked. According to this, Myra flipped to a page covered in crude tallies. At least 50 in the city, maybe more. And they have shards, multiple shards based on these notes. They're planning to open a portal right in the middle of Greyhaven. Fen stumbled over, his staff serving more as a crutch now than a magical focus. The young mage looked exhausted, his face pale and sweaty from the effort of healing beyond his normal capacity. "I've stabilized the wounded. They'll live if we get them to a proper healer soon. But, Myra, did you say portal?" "As in, a gateway to the abyss?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." Myra's hands clenched around the notebook until her knuckles went white. "These bastards are going to try to summon abyss monsters directly into a crowd of civilians. The death toll could be in the thousands." Silence fell over the group. Even the merchants, who didn't fully understand the implications, sensed the gravity of what had been discovered. "We need to get back to Greyhaven," Caden said. "Now, warn the guild." "Agreed." Myra turned to Henrik, who stood beside his wounded son. "We're going to move as fast as possible. The wounded will ride in the wagons. We're not stopping until we reach the city, understood?" Yes, of course," Henrik said quickly. "Whatever you need." They made it back to Greyhaven in record time, pushing the horses hard and stopping only when absolutely necessary. By the time the city walls came into view, it was deep into the third day, the sun setting behind them in a blaze of orange and red. The Fulcrum Guild was still busy, despite the late hour. Hunters milled about, examining contracts, discussing missions, the usual organized chaos. But when Myra strode through the front door, with blood still on her armor and that notebook clutched in her hand, conversations died mid-sentence. "Where's Thorn?" she demanded. "Office," someone said, "but he's in a—" Myra was already moving, taking the stairs 3 at a time. Caden and Fen followed, leaving confused hunters staring after them. Thorn Gravelock was indeed in his office, reviewing reports with 2 other hunters. He looked up as Myra burst through the door, his single good eye narrowing at the interruption. "This had better be important, Holtwood." "It is." Myra slammed the notebook down on his desk. "Order of the Crimson Star. They ambushed our caravan, 20 cultists, at least 3 using enhanced abilities from forced shard absorption. We found this on one of the bodies." Thorn's expression went from annoyed to deadly serious in an instant. He opened the notebook, his scarred fingers flipping through pages. Caden watched the guildmaster's face as he read, saw anger, then concern, then cold calculation. "Son of a bitch," Thorn muttered. He looked up at the 2 hunters who'd been in the office with him. "Out, now. Tell Gareth to gather every A and B rank hunter in the city. Emergency briefing in 1 hour." The hunters fled without question. Thorn stood, moving to a wall map of Greyhaven that dominated one side of his office. The Harvest Festival, perfect target. Maximum civilians, minimal security, everyone distracted. His finger traced locations on the map. "These addresses in the notebook, I recognize some of them. Abandoned buildings, old storage houses, places that could hide cult activity." He turned back to them. "You 3 did good work. This could have been a massacre." "What do we do?" Fen asked quietly. "We hit them first," Thorn said, his voice like grinding stone, "before they can execute their plan. The catacombs beneath the city, that's where their main base will be. Old tunnels, forgotten spaces, perfect for cult activity." He looked at each of them in turn. "You 3 are part of this operation. You discovered the threat. You've earned the right to help eliminate it. But this is going to be dangerous. We're talking about 50 cultists, possibly more, in their own territory, with abyss shards at their disposal." "I'm in," Caden said immediately. "Me too," Myra agreed. Fen swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly on his staff. I'm not a fighter, but if you need healing, I can do that." "We'll need every healer we can get," Thorn assured him. He moved back to his desk, pulling out a large ledger and flipping through pages. "I'm forming a strike team, 15 hunters, the best we have. A ranks and B ranks who fought cultists before. We go in fast, we hit hard, we don't leave anyone alive to open another portal." He looked at Caden specifically, his single eye searching. "You're going to see things down there. Dark magic, human sacrifice, the kind of evil that monster hunting looks clean. Can you handle that?" "Yes," he said simply. "Good." Thorn pulled out a piece of parchment and began writing rapidly. "The raid happens tomorrow night. We hit them during their preparation phase, before they're ready to execute their plan. Surprise and overwhelming force, that's how we win this." He finished writing and looked up. "Go get some rest, eat, prepare your gear." And Caden, the guildmaster's scarred face was serious. "Whatever you've got inside you, that crimson power, you're going to need it. Don't hold back." "I won't," Caden promised. They left Thorn's office and descended the stairs in silence. The main hall was buzzing now. Word had spread about the emergency meeting, and hunters were gathering, their conversations speculative and worried. At the bottom of the stairs, Myra stopped and turned to Caden and Fen. "Tomorrow is going to be hell," she said quietly. "Cultists are unpredictable, and when they're cornered, they'll do anything, including blowing themselves up or releasing whatever monsters they've got caged. Stay close to me, watch each other's backs, and If things go wrong, she paused, seeming to struggle with something. If things go wrong, get out. Don't be a hero. Says the A-rank hunter who's probably going to lead the charge, Fen muttered, but there was affection in his voice beneath the sarcasm. Myra's lips twitched in a brief smile. Fair point. She looked at Caden. You've been quiet. Thinking, Caden said. About the cultists using crimson-like power? About shards being used to force enhancement on people who weren't ready for it? About the sick, wrong quality of their energy compared to his own? The cultists, their power, it's like mine, but wrong. Forced absorption, Myra explained. Normal people can't handle abyss shards. The energy is too raw, too corrupted. But cultists have rituals, ways to force the shard's power into a body. The price is madness and a slow death, but in the short term, it creates enhanced fighters. Dangerous, but unstable. They're making weapons out of people, Caden said. Yes, Myra's expression was grim.
Thank you for listening. New chapters will be released daily on the channel. This audio material was produced exclusively for the Section 56 channel. All rights reserved. Have a nice day.